We are talking about an unconfirmed information leak that completely shifts the dynamic between two of the most iconic women in Port Charles, Elizabeth Baldwin and Britt Westbourne. Word on the street is that a highly classified medical storyline has been floating around the set, and it contains a revelation so massive that it could alter the entire trajectory of the hospital's leadership and the lives of everyone involved. If you ask me, the writers are gearing up to drop a bombshell that will leave the audience completely speechless. There is a hidden agenda at play here, and it feels like we are just scratching the surface of a much darker, much more twisted narrative involving betrayal, medical deception, and a shocking twist of fate. I keep wondering whether this leak was intentional because the details are just too specific to be a mere coincidence. We all know that the tension between Elizabeth and Britt has always been a simmering pot ready to boil over, but this new behind-the-scenes possibility suggests that the pot is about to explode in a way nobody ever anticipated. The insider buzz points to a massive confrontation, but not the typical screaming match we are used to seeing in the hospital corridors. No, this is something much colder, much more calculated. A secret just got exposed in the writer's room about what really happened when Britt went on the run with Rocco, and more importantly, what is actually coursing through Britt's veins right now. Something about this feels hidden, like a puzzle piece that was intentionally left out of the recent episodes to blindside us later. We are looking at a storyline that blends intense medical mystery with dark psychological warfare, and I am entirely here for it. Now, let us talk about the general consensus. Everyone assumes that Britt's impending return to Port Charles is going to be a straightforward, emotional redemption arc. Most viewers believe that she is simply coming back to reclaim her position as co-chief of staff, to bravely battle her Huntington's disease with the support of her peers, and to slowly rebuild her shattered life. The obvious explanation seems to be that she will walk back through those sliding glass doors, offer a few half-hearted apologies to the staff, and everyone will eventually welcome her back with open arms because she is sick. People think that Britt's primary goal is just to find Ross Cullum and Jen Sidwell to secure the medication she desperately needs to survive her severe neurological condition. The audience has been conditioned to view Britt as a tragic anti-heroine who makes terrible mistakes but ultimately suffers the consequences due to her failing health. And when it comes to Elizabeth, the assumptions are equally predictable. Most viewers believe that Liz, being the dedicated, compassionate head nurse that she has always been, will eventually take the high road. Everyone assumes that Liz will look at Britt's deteriorating health, feel a pang of her trademark empathy, and forgive the fact that Britt ambushed her and locked her in a supply closet to facilitate a reckless escape with Rocco. The fandom seems to think that Liz's anger is just a temporary roadblock, a momentary lapse in her usually angelic demeanor. People expect Liz to scold Britt, maybe file a formal HR complaint, and then go right back to assisting her in the operating room as if nothing happened. The general belief is that Liz's inherent goodness will override any desire for vengeance, especially when faced with a dying woman. But what if we're looking at this the wrong way? What if that wasn't the real reason Britt is coming back? What if the situation is being manipulated on a level we cannot even begin to comprehend? The alternative story that is currently leaking from my sources paints a terrifyingly different picture. Britt is not returning just to heal or to humbly ask for her job back. The rumor is that Britt is actively working a covert, highly dangerous mission for Ross Cullum and Jen Sidwell, deeply entangled in the lethal cold fusion project. She needs her medical clearance and her hospital access not to save lives, but to use the facility's resources as a front for her dark, clandestine operations with these two villains. She is playing a dangerous game of espionage, using her pristine white coat as a shield to hide her true, nefarious intentions from the authorities and her unsuspecting colleagues. But here is where the narrative takes a massive, shocking turn. What if Elizabeth is fully aware that something is incredibly wrong? If you ask me, Liz has not forgotten the closet incident for a single second. That wasn't just a momentary lapse in judgment from Britt. In Liz's eyes, that was a calculated predatory ambush. It was a direct attack on her physical safety and her professional authority in a place she considers her second home. Liz is absolutely done playing the victim, and she is certainly done being the forgiving martyr for people who abuse her trust. The insider buzz suggests that Liz is going to use her extensive influence and sharp intellect to actively block Britt from ever practicing medicine in that hospital again. Liz is on the warpath, secretly investigating Britt's every move, determined to uncover exactly why Britt is so desperate to get her hands on the hospital's secure network. Liz is transforming from a gentle healer into a relentless hunter. And this deep dive investigation leads to the most jaw-dropping revelation of the year. Are you ready for this? The rumor is that Joe and Lucas Jones stumble upon Britt's hidden stash of medication, the very injections Cullum has been providing her to supposedly hold off the fatal effects of Huntington's disease. But when they run a covert lab test on the vials, the results are earth-shattering. It is not a miracle cure. It is not an experimental neurological drug. It is just saline. Simple, harmless salt water. This changes absolutely everything. Britt Westbourne does not have Huntington's disease. She never did. The entire diagnosis, the terrifying symptoms, the paralyzing fear of impending death, it has all been a massive, cruel psychological manipulation orchestrated by Cullum and Sidwell to keep her completely compliant and desperate for their help. So, if she doesn't have Huntington's, what explains her sudden, terrifying collapses? Why did she pass out right before returning to Port Charles? The unconfirmed information floating around is that her physical breakdowns are not the result of a failing nervous system, but rather extreme, prolonged exhaustion combined with something far more life-altering. Britt Westbourne might be pregnant. Let that sink in for a moment. The immense physical toll of running from the law, working for international criminals, and carrying a child has simply broken her body down. And the wildest speculation of all, the whispers in the dark corners of the fandom suggest that the father of this unborn child could be none other than Jason Morgan. A Jason Morgan baby would send massive shockwaves through every single family in Port Charles, completely rewriting the power dynamics of the city. There may be more going on here than a simple medical misdiagnosis. Let us break down the different possibilities currently being debated behind closed doors. Scenario 1, the ultimate victim narrative. In this scenario, Britt is completely in the dark about the saline and the pregnancy. She truly believes she is rapidly dying of Huntington's, and Cullum has been using her absolute terror to force her into acting as his spy for the Cold Fusion Project. When Liz, Lucas, and Joe uncover the truth, Britt's entire reality shatters into a million pieces. The revelation that she is not dying, but instead bringing a new life into the world, breaks her completely. In this version, Liz's burning anger evaporates into profound pity, and the hospital staff must rally around a broken, traumatized Britt to protect her and her unborn child from Cullum's inevitable wrath. That's one possibility. But another theory is far more sinister and changes how we view Britt entirely. Scenario 2. Britt knows everything. What if Britt discovered the saline months ago but chose to keep up the elaborate charade? What if she knows she is pregnant with Jason's child and is actively using the fake Huntington's diagnosis as the ultimate untouchable shield? In this scenario, Britt is a master manipulator, using the pity of her colleagues, including a highly suspicious Elizabeth, to blind them to her ongoing espionage for Jen Sidwell. She knows that no one, not even the police, will harshly interrogate a dying woman. If this is true, Britt is ruthlessly weaponizing her own body and her unborn baby to successfully execute the cold fusion theft, proving that she is truly her father's daughter. This would make her one of the most ruthless antagonists currently on the canvas, completely unapologetic about her dark deceit. And then there is scenario 3, which focuses heavily on Elizabeth's reaction and changes the entire power dynamic of the show. In this scenario, Liz finds out about the saline and the pregnancy, and it puts her in the ultimate moral dilemma. She is furious about the closet ambush and Britt's endless lies, but her innate compassion prevents her from utterly destroying a pregnant woman who has been psychologically tortured by Cullum. So Liz chooses a radically different path. Instead of exposing Britt to the police or the medical board and sending her to a cold prison cell, Liz enacts a quiet, poetic justice. She uses her administrative power to permanently revoke Britt's medical privileges. She tells Britt, You are staying here, but not as a doctor. Liz forces Britt to strip off her white coat and become a regular, vulnerable maternity patient under the strict, watchful care of the very nurses she betrayed. This third scenario is fascinating because it is a gentle but agonizing punishment, forcing Britt to surrender all her power and face her raw, unhidden reality. For Liz, this isn't about petty revenge. It is about teaching a profound, life-altering lesson. Britt has spent her entire life hiding behind her medical degree, using her elite status to manipulate, control, and escape accountability. By forcing her to be just a patient, Liz strips away Britt's impenetrable armor. Britt would have to endure months of bed rest, monitored constantly by Liz's loyal staff, completely unable to access the hospital's secure servers or communicate with Cullum and Sidwell. She would be trapped in a prison of care, forced to reconcile the two vastly different lives she has been trying to lead. It is a brilliant psychological checkmate by Elizabeth, proving that you do not need to be cruel to completely neutralize your enemy. If you ask me, though, there is one theory that is the most terrifying. The most dangerous possibility is that the baby isn't Jason's at all, and Liz's attempt at playing God goes horribly wrong. What if Cullum and Sidwell didn't just give Britt saline? What if they used her as a human incubator for a dark genetic experiment tied directly to the Cold Fusion Project? What if the child Britt is carrying is designed to be ultimate leverage in a global conflict? And what if Elizabeth, in her attempt to punish Britt by keeping her confined to a hospital bed, inadvertently locks Port Charles into a deadly, inescapable trap? This theory suggests that Liz's attempt at poetic justice will backfire catastrophically. By taking control of Britt's medical care, Liz makes the hospital the primary target for Cullum and Sidwell. Instead of a quiet lesson in humility, Liz accidentally triggers the most violent, terrifying siege the hospital has ever seen as heavily armed mercenaries descend on the maternity ward to reclaim their project, forcing the two bitter rivals to fight side by side just to survive the night. But, of course, nothing is set in stone yet. The rumor mill is a wild place, and the writers love to keep us guessing until the very last frame airs on our screens. Will Elizabeth actually go through with this symbolic, crushing punishment, forcing Britt to trade her stethoscope for a hospital gown? Will Britt's shocking pregnancy be the key to her ultimate redemption, or the catalyst for her absolute destruction? And what happens when the rest of Port Charles finds out that Britt is carrying a child while secretly working for international terrorists? I keep wondering whether Liz will cross a line she can never come back from, or if Britt will finally find the peace she has been desperately faking for so long. We don't know the full truth yet. It could be right, it could be totally off base. But one thing is absolutely certain. There is definitely something else hiding in the shadows of the hospital, and the fallout is going to be spectacularly dramatic. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.